Sup guys, let me start off by introducing myself. My name is Denki Kaminari. I'm also known as the stun gun hero Charge Bolt, and this is my coming out story. So let's jump into it, shall we? First off, I will answer the question of my sexuality. I've been asked this a few times, and to answer your questions, I am bisexual. Well, as some of my friends would like to call it, a bi-disease. So let's jump into how I discovered I was bisexual. So when I first joined UA, I got close to Bakugo, Sero, Mina, Kirishima. I even got close with Mineta, and we were basically the Baku squad. However, after a while, I found myself crushing on Bakugo, and that made me question if I was gay or not. And the way I dealt with it at the time was burying my feelings deep inside and just ignoring it. So after a while of going through classes and stuff, I eventually grew close to Jiro, my classmate, and we started dating. It was nice for a while, but I couldn't ignore my feelings for Bakugo. They were getting really intense, and eventually I talked to Jiro about it, and instead of being upset, she just laughs at me and calls me a bisexual disaster. Another question I get asked a lot is polyamorous versus monogamous. And I would have to say I am personally polyamorous. How I discovered this is Jiro and I experimented because, like, I had a crush on Bakugo. Jiro actually developed a crush on her best friend, Momo. So, Jiro and I talked about it, and we discovered the term of polyamory and what it meant and all of that, and we decided to try it. So Jiro was successful, and I not so much. Bakugo didn't feel romance, but he was sexually attracted to me, so after a while of talking to Jiro, she was hesitant, but I was allowed to go for it. So for a while, Bakugo and I were sleeping together, and it became rough for me, having romantic feelings for somebody and them not returning those feelings, but you're still sleeping together, so you're making things complicated when it's supposed to be just friends with benefits. On top of that, Jiro and I started growing distant, so it was complicated for a while and rough. And after a while of sleeping together, Bakugo did agree to date me, but under one condition: he didn't share me. And after a while of thinking about it, with how distant Jiro and I grew and how close Jiro and Momo grew, we just decided to split things off and become friends. And so because of that, I ended up going out with Bakugo. Bakugo and I kind of had a rough relationship at first. He was a little possessive, but I ignored it because of my feelings. Most of the time, though, he was a softie. He didn't like to show it, but he was totally a softie. And Bakugo, if you're watching this, don't kill me, please. So then I met Shinzo, and we became close friends. No romantic feelings at first, but trust me, it's relevant to the story. Backtracking, because of the Baku squad, Kirishima and I were close friends, and because of that, I got to meet Amajiki. I met him during UA because he was the big three, and they came and, beat our asses the first time they met us. Muriel wanted to fight, and just Not like fight, but training fight. Either way, it ended up in disaster. Totally embarrassing. But point being, Amajiki, it turned out the closer we got, Amajiki developed a crush on me. And despite me being loud and obnoxious, and like most extroverts do, I adopted my introvert, and Bakugo was not happy with this. And in the end, he told me that he admitted he had feelings for Kirishima instead. So we broke up. Stayed friends. Okay, so backtracking to Shinzo, him and I grew closer, and eventually I found myself falling for him. And he won't admit it, but he totally was falling for me as well. After a month or two, we hit it off, agreed to go on a date, and ever since then, we've been together. However, I still had feelings for Amajiki. We grew really close, and I loved Shinzo, but I also couldn't get Amajiki off of my mind, so I talked to Shinzo and explained to him that I was polyamorous. And he was surprisingly very acceptable, so he agreed to let me go date Amajiki, and of course, poor Amajiki was so shy at first. It was the cutest thing ever. But we ended up dating, and yeah, it's been going well. Up to this day, I am still with both Amajiki and Shinzo. Next, let's cover the subject of pronouns. My pronouns are not he, him, they are actually he, they. It started back in middle school. I was dared to wear a dress, and I ended up liking it a little more than I thought I would, but I didn't admit it. No way I could have admitted it at the time. But when I became close to Jiro and started dating, I confided in her, and through her ability, I was able to explore the punk fashion, and I ended up wearing many different looks. So as I got older and I started dating Bakugo, I looked a little more into it. Bakugo actually encouraged me to do this, and I found out there was a name for it, and it was gender fluid, and I was able to answer a lot of questions. Am I a boy? Am I a girl? Am I a combination? Most days I'm a combination, but I do have my days where I would rather wear a skirt, and there are days when I'd rather, dress up like a boy. To me, my gender flows throughout the spectrum. There are femme days, mass days, like I just said, and days that I feel both. So officially, I am gender fluid. Lastly, because I am gender fluid, I do get asked a lot if I have dysphoria, and I would have to say on a rare occasion, yes, but for the most part, I've learned to be comfortable with who I am over the years, and comfortable with my body, and how I feel about my gender and pronouns and sexuality most days. I've accepted who I am, and I don't want to change it. I'm cool as heck. So, yeah. That was my coming out story. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about me, and I would like to finish this off by saying Happy Pride Month, stay safe out there, and I will see you later.